It's another edition of Library Guide
and Gal.
Go to the movies. I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Disclaimer, don't say we didn't warn you. This episode contains spoilers. So if you've wanted to watch this movie but haven't yet, we recommend listening to our podcast afterwards. Thanks so much. And now on to Library Gals Go to the Movies.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Library Gals Go to the Movies. I'm Via.
And I'm Katy.
And we are here in November bringing you some cyberpunk movies, I guess in honor of, I don't know, is that the correct term? In honor of Cyber Monday?
Sure.
Which will be coming out, so happy Cyber Monday.
Happy Cyber Monday, everyone. Actually, happy close to Thanksgiving also, if you celebrate. And yeah, Cyber Monday coming up.
Are you looking forward to any particular foods?
You know what? Last year we made something called $1 Million Mashed Potatoes.
That sounds, I'm all for mashed potatoes.
They absolutely lived up to the name. You'll not be happy to know they're full of dairy, cream cheese, milk, and butter.
I mean, I still want them. I just can't have them and be alive.
And the other thing that we did was we always order pie from a local bakery, and this year's bakery, no sponsorship, is Dough Mama in Clintonville. We're getting a cranberry ginger pear pie.
That sounds good. I love Dough Mama. That name is amazing.
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
And they live up to their name. They make excellent pies.
Awesome.
We also watch movies every year on Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. We always watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Home for the Holidays, so we're ready to tuck into pie and movies. What about you?
Nice. Yeah, I all I know is that there's going to be French silk pie, which is my favorite, so I'm super ready for that. Mm-hmm. And all the chaos that ensues.
The chaos with French silk pie?
Yeah. And like my body.
Got it.
Oh.
Worth the chaos. Totally get it now.
So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm a huge gravy fan and like a stuffing fan, so pretty much any of that food is good. We usually watch movies too, but we don't really have any like traditional ones, so we'll watch something, I'm sure. I actually just watched, have you heard of Lamb?
Yes, how was it?
It was intense. Oh. It's definitely, I mean, like, it's a Swedish film, and it's also an A24 film, so, like, it's not a happy film, but, like, it's just kind of, like, a tense, like, you know it's not going to end well movie, but I gotta admit, like, as weird as it is, the little lamb child, freaking cute.
It looks so adorable.
She's freaking cute. And I will say, so yeah, it is a very weird movie, but I did not hate it at all.
Great.
It's weird. Like I can totally see why a lot of people would not be into it, but I'm a fan. It got me.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Very cool.
Are you a big fan of I chose Cyberpunk with Cyber Monday because I am not a fan at all of Black Friday. No. I mean, I guess I'm not really a fan of either of them, but like if I'm going to pick one, I'm going to be like, well, you can't like trample people to death online
right.
physically and hurt people, so I'm going to go with that one. Plus just Cyberpunk is cool and it's a good excuse to do it.
Yeah.
So are you a fan of Black Friday? Do you go shopping?
No, I'm not. In fact, I really wholeheartedly stand by the buy nothing day on Black Friday.
Oh yeah, me too.
Christmas is not my favorite holiday for the marketing and present giving part. I do love giving presents, but shopping is not my favorite thing. Mm-hmm. So Cyber Monday, honestly, what I end up doing is finding deals for things for myself.
There you go.
If I need it, but it's not something that I like look forward to shop for anyone on my list. I'm much more of a local sentimental gift giver than a we have to have a new TV kind of gift giver. So,
I love that. I'm very similar. My friends think I'm crazy because I'm one of those Christmas people that shops all year round.
Yeah.
And so I've already wrapped most of my Christmas presents. This is being recorded on, what day is it?
It's the 22nd of November. You're a month ahead. Look at you.
Because like that's the thing. I started doing it like a handful of years ago, because I was tired of being stressed out around the holidays.
Yeah.
And, like, not being able to enjoy Christmas and, like, the festiveness. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to start doing this so that I can actually enjoy it again. And it's worked. So, I mean, if it's possible for you to do it. Like, I still have a couple things, you know, like food items or things that I have to wait till a certain time that I have to get. But I feel like it really helps cut down on the stress. So if it's something you can do, you know, it's just like any like pattern, any what word am I looking for?
Like a habit.
Habit. Habit. Thank you. Yeah, you just gotta like kind of do it, and then like it'll stick eventually, and you'll start doing it. Maybe.
I think that's a great idea.
So
yeah, cool.
Yeah, but yes, definitely like Cyber Monday. If there's anything that pops up last minute, like in my email, I'm always looking for it because the world is becoming much more virtual and. Every day it makes things, it's, you know, it's got its ups and its downs, but, you know, the perks of shopping are definitely there, so.
Well, and let's give another plug to all of the free things the library has to offer.
Yes.
If you're looking for a true gift on Cyber Monday, encourage your friends and family to get a library card. We have virtual streaming free deals, so you can get movies, audiobooks, anything like that you can think of as gifts, or maybe gift someone a library card who doesn't know all the great things libraries have to offer. One of them includes one of the movies we're going to talk about today is available on Canopy streaming for free. So share the love of libraries and gift a library card this year.
And that one that you can find is on Canopy. It's a Scanner Darkly. But we're going to start you off first with the other movie that we watched and are going to discuss, Ready Player One, because that one there's always a very diverse scale, I feel like, of sci-fi. There's like the fun action sci-fi, and then there's like the really philosophical, heavy, deep thinker sci-fi that hurts your brain. So we're going to start off with like the more fun one, not hard sci-fi first. So we're going to do Ready Player One.
Awesome. So Ready Player One was a novel that came out I think early 2000s the novel was published. It was written by Ernest Cline and was an incredibly popular novel. And actually, Ready Player 2 just came out recently, if you're looking for a sequel to that. It was a book that I never did read, but I will never forget someone book talking this book to me. It was at a work event where a coworker had just read it and was so excited about it and filled in all the details. And I would just always remember that book sounding so great. And somehow it just never became one that made its way to the top of my list. If I were to read it, I do know that Will Wheaton does the audiobook narration, so probably going to move higher up on my list now that I've seen the movie. But it was interesting coming into the movie with no context, other than what one coworker 8 years ago told me about it. So I didn't really know a whole lot about the movie aside from the fact that it was a world, post-apocalyptic world in a way that's set in Columbus, Ohio. So our lead character, Wade Watts, he lives in a post-apocalyptic Columbus, and in this world, a lot of people have dedicated their entire lives to living as avatars in a game, or an entertainment universe, as it's called.
And this is not the avatars, like the giant blue.
Not the blue.
This avatar is in like computer, internet technology.
These are these actual cyberpunk versions of gaming avatars. So they're also very stylized. Their avatars are all very different looking. They kind of, if you've ever been on a game generator, every avatar looks different. People can take different shapes and forms. But the reason that people are doing this is because a game creator, James Halliday, he created a world where he hid keys and Easter eggs to his entire fortune.
Called the Oasis.
The Oasis. Yeah. And the whole point and the reason why people are spending their time in this game is to locate all of those pieces of information, and Wade gets deeply embedded and invested in trying to find that. Wade is an orphan. He lives with his aunt and her deadbeat boyfriend. Boyfriend played by, speaking of A24 movies, the father from The Witch.
Yeah.
The creepy father.
Yes.
I unfortunately don't remember his name, but he was kind of sleazy and really great in this movie. And Wade uses his avatar to try and hunt down the keys and the Easter eggs. And really the whole movie is just about that journey and the fellow avatars that he meets in the game. They do end up coming together IRL, as they say, or in real life. See, I know the speak. I know the jargon.
You're a cool kid.
and so the whole movie is about their quest to find these Easter eggs. You also get a good frame narrative of the game creator, who is played by Mark Rylance. In a very weird choice. Mark Rylance is an odd duck in this movie, but I've heard that Mark Rylance is an odd duck in general. And he kind of plays this outcast who has some regrets in his life. So a lot of the Oasis and the game is correcting some of those choices that he made.
You know, actually, I already have a fun fact
Yeah.
about you for the movie. Is apparently Michael Keaton was one of the first choices to play Halliday.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and I mean, I'm a huge Michael Keaton fan, so part of me is like, that would have been so much better. But like, I don't think that you know, who played him again?
Mark Rylance.
Mark Rylance. Yeah, I don't think he did a bad job at all. But yeah, I'm kind of like, ooh, it would be a very different portrayal if it were Michael Keaton.
And they definitely made it like a stereotypical nerdy, antisocial, kind of strange, awkward socially person. I thought it would have been funny. So Mark Rylance, he was the artistic director for the Globe Theatre in London. So he comes from a classically trained Shakespearean background. And I had the luck to see him in a few Shakespearean plays dozens of years ago. And he's always reminded me of British Robin Williams.
Oh.
So I think it would have been cool had he still been alive. This could also have been a great role for Robin Williams as kind of the odd bird. And also playing the partner in the game experience or the game creation is Simon Pegg, who I love so much. Simon Pegg of Shaun of the Dead fame, which is one of my favorite movies of all time.
I thought that just in case, for our listeners that don't know what cyberpunk actually is, I would just really quickly put in that it started off, it's basically a genre of sci-fi that's set in a lawless subculture of an oppressive society dominated by AI and computer tech. So very futuristic. There's always some kind of like evil corporation that's bigger and over everything and keeping people kind of prisoner in their own society. And oftentimes there's a rebellion part of that story as well. So if you don't already know what cyberpunk is, I know that word has especially popped up a lot recently, especially with like Cyberpunk, the game, you know, and like Blade Runner's sequel coming out, you know, a long time ago or like a handful, you know, of years ago. And, so it's pretty popular now, especially in the post-apocalyptic movies and strain that we've kind of run on.
Yeah, and it's like sort of that concept of like plugging into an alternate reality too. So as you're thinking of your holidays and plugging into the alternate of shopping and into the cyber world, a little bit of that has kind of informed a lot of these things. And so I think it would be really interesting to talk about your movie based on what that definition of cyberpunk is. Just to kind of talk about what the movie is, and then we can get into both of the films, like, in comparison.
Yeah, like how they do it. Sure. Well, so we also watched A Scanner Darkly, which is one that had been on my list for a while. I've read the book Ready Player One, but I have not read A Scanner Darkly, which is by Philip K. Dick. So I, you know, like hard sci-fi is something that I love, but it's not easy to read, especially Philip K. Dick. Like, it's a very dense stuff to read, so I generally watch more of the movies than I read the novels. But A Scanner Darkly is set in, again, like a kind of a dystopian future world that's not that far away in the future from when it was originally written. The book was written in 1977, and it was based in, like, 1994. The movie was in, like, 2006, and it's set in 2013, which I don't remember if they actually mentioned it in the movie. That was some trivia that I found out, so they kind of compensate for that. But the movie stars some really great people, like some really big names. It has Keanu Reeves, it has Winona Ryder, it has Woody Harrelson, it has Robert Downey Jr., and it's directed by Richard Linklater. So like some great names in that. And it's about Keanu Reeves plays an undercover sort of cop detective, like agent that works for this New Path recovery place that's supposed to be like a drug rehab place. And he is undercover as a druggie, essentially, because we're at a point in the future where just the war on drugs has become so, just run rampant through society that the majority of people are on drugs. And the big one is one called Substance D, and the D stands for death, substance death, which is a big drug. It's on the it's legal on the market, and it's supposed to cause just like total shifts and changes in your reality. It's very, very addictive. People are really like scrambling for that experience, because they just don't like their lives, in real life. And so again, we're playing with like a, escape from reality idea here. And so Keanu Reeves' character, he has two different names, and I'm actually blanking on his real name. But his character name, like Bob Arctor, is the name of his undercover portrayal, and he has he just goes undercover as a druggie, and he's trying to sniff out who kind of is one of the ringleaders in this group of friends, and who are people that are on this substance D drug. They're trying to kind of figure out where it came from and get people into the rehab center, bring people in and arrest them or whatnot. But in doing this, Bob's character, he does the drug himself to fit in, and starts feeling the effects of that, and then has to go through basically like mental testing at this New Path recovery place to make sure he's on track enough and not too far gone on the drug himself. So very interesting complex. It also has a lot of like paranoia and like almost like espionage, like spying, surveillance systems. Like you can trust no one in this movie, because anybody could also be undercover, and even your friend that appears like a druggie could be, actually not in that area. They could just be a cop, so and I felt that. That movie felt like a paranoia trip.
Oh, for sure. It was like everything about this movie is uneasy. I felt a little like uncomfortable the entire time, because I was also like, well, I don't know exactly who's who or who I'm supposed to be trusting. So it did that really well. So we have two really different looks at the concept of cyberpunk. We have one really big, kind of bombastic, pop culture flooded Avatar example, and then we have the Scanner Darkly, which is more underground, you're being watched and monitored all the time kind of thing. So, Ready Player One I had a blast with. I thought it was a lot of fun. I do wish I had read the book now before I saw the movie, because I do feel like I want to see how those pop culture things were referenced in the book. I'd like to know how they were brought up, and why it was so important to the story. Like, I think it's because Halliday was such a nostalgic person, and he's kind of going back to when he was a kid and remembering all of these things that he grew up with. Because when I say nostalgia, it's mostly things from the 80s, the 1980s. So, I don't know, because there's a dinosaur from, I'm assuming, Jurassic Park, but there's also King Kong, and there's the
DeLorean shows
the DeLorean, and then like a million other things that are just in the background that come kind of flooded at you. And I want to know how that plays in a novel form and not just visual form, like how that impacts the actual playing of the game, like why those things are there.
Yeah. So one of the big differences between the book and the movie is that it's entirely 80s reference based in the book, whereas in the movie they do have 80s references, but a good chunk of them are 90s references. They kind of aged it up a little bit, which I'm guessing is for just the connection to the audience they thought were going to see it at that point. But yeah, I don't know. I personally didn't feel like it was necessary to do, but I didn't think it changed a whole lot. But I was just kind of like, like younger people know about other older generations. Like they know about music. They know about like I feel like it dumbed it down a little bit. It's like they know what that stuff. Like it's fine. Like they'll figure it out. They'll do the research if they read the book. But yeah, one of the things is I read the book, and obviously, beforehand, I told you, I said I'm in the minority. I hated the book. I thought the movie was better than the book, but the movie was just like so for me. Like I watched it and it was enjoyable, but but a lot of my friends that read the book and loved it said that they didn't like the movie as much. Having read it, so I like that you got kind of just a dive-in perspective of it with the movie. Yeah. So you'll have to see how you feel about it, like, after you read the book.
Definitely. And one thing I know... So, after the movie was over and the final credits are running, I could not... I knew this probably at some point in my head, but was really shocked to find that the movie was actually directed by Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, it was.
Which, I mean, Steven Spielberg, if you're talking about nostalgia for the 80s, he's the guy. I mean, he's like your go-to. He, if you're talking E.T., Indiana Jones, when you're talking about Steven Spielberg, you already have an idea of nostalgia because you are nostalgic for movies that he made. And... like, I'm thinking, like, he produced Poltergeist, E.T., name an 80s movie, and most likely he had something to do with it. So, in thinking of that, I wish this movie actually was more nostalgic, and it does kind of make sense. If they tried to add 90s references in, just based on the time the movie's set, or the audience they're going for, that's not... a lot of what I consider his time, or like those aren't things I'm necessarily nostalgic for, so maybe it was just my personal view, but I was honestly surprised. Like I wanted the movie to be bigger somehow and crazier than it was just because it was a Steven Spielberg feature. And I'm sure considering him as the director for this content, it seemed like a match made in heaven. I just wish that he had gone a little more with it. Maybe it's also because the references are so quick and kind of an aside that there's so many references that they can't really latch onto one. It's just like,
I'm sure it's
this is
so
nostalgic,
hard to fit all that in
right?
there.
Yeah. And the movie does have its fair share of conflict. Wade just doesn't go straight into the Oasis, get what he needs, and comes out. There is, as you said, like the evil corporation side, where there's an organization that has hired just a flock of gamers to constantly play this game and look for all of these keys, and no one seems to be clever enough except for Wade to figure out what the clues actually are. And you see that Wade and Halliday kind of end up having a very close mental connection where he can relate to all of the things that Halliday was hiding in the game, being socially awkward, wanting to kind of look out for the little guy and get his legacy to live on. And I think that was a really interesting part of it. That's something that I think happens in Cyberpunk a lot, is there's always this concept of a person or their being or their essence can stay alive as long as parts of them are around in quote-unquote cyberspace. So this really takes that literally, where Halliday actually is a part of the game. He coded himself and videos of himself into the game, so Wade interacts with a person who's been dead for 20 years. I thought that was pretty cool, and they do take it very literally in this sense, but that is a concept of that cyberpunk mentality, that person is alive forever.
Yeah, it's not a like programmed hologram, like I have so many responses plugged in. It feels like he's talking to him in real time. It's like his consciousness was uploaded, and that's like the big cyberpunk thing. But I do feel like even with the evil corporation, I feel like this one has a more positive spin on the tech and the AI and the virtual world than negative. It's much more of a triumphant feeling. I don't really feel in this movie, which I think is a common thing for Steven Spielberg movies. Like I think that there's I wasn't afraid that the good guys weren't going to win in the end. You know? It was like I was along for the ride. But I do really like, the book does expand on this more, but I do really like like in the beginning of the movie, we have the scene where he's like, you know, briefly explaining kind of the setting of the movie. And Wade's talking about how, you know, everybody, like pretty much everybody is like living, like their most important self and most important life is in the Oasis. It's in this virtual world. And they show this little montage while he's saying it of like him getting ready to charge up his you know, computer station. They show a mom that, well, they show like the battle that's actually happening in the Oasis on some planet where he's going to meet his friend. But then they show like one of those other characters in the battlefield is like a mom in her bathrobe that's like punching people in her VR helmet, and her little boy is in the background and he's like yelling, "Mom, Mom!" and the breakfast on the stove is on fire, and she's like, "Go ask your dad!" like swatting him away.
I'm in the middle of something here.
Yeah, they have a little girl who gets killed and like rage quits and starts screaming, and then the biggest one was when there's like a Japanese businessman who's in his office, like in like the rows of cubicles. Nobody else looks like they're hooked up at the moment, but he is. He loses something, and then he gets up from his desk, goes running to the big glass window, and attempts to jump out of it before his coworker grabs him and like stops him. And it's done in kind of a funny way, but like I was really like, no, that's the obsession with like if your kind of life in the game gets screwed up, like you don't feel like it's worth living outside of the game. Like that's how into it people are and society has become.
Yeah, and then, you know, people build up money and life force and, you know, battle skills within the game, and so they, you know, they're kind of living in that reality almost all the time. And there's a scene with his aunt and her boyfriend where I think it's gloves. There's like a pair of gloves that Wade takes, or he leaves the boyfriend like a broken pair of gloves. Yeah. And it turns out that guy has spent all of their life savings on the game that he was playing. So there's also this element of, you know, gambling and risk taken in where people are essentially destitute. Like outside of the game, there's not a lot to live for, which is why everyone is desperate to win the game and get that legacy for them.
And they do a good job showing that too. Like the design of Wade's housing situation and the stacks of like trailers, and just like it just looks like a scrapyard of like cars and trailers and houses just piled up in like skyscraper form. Yeah. And I thought that was a really cool visual. And of course, one of the biggest things we haven't mentioned is that this movie literally creates that virtual world for you to look at. Like a good chunk of it is CGI animated, and that's like how the movie plays out. A Scanner Darkly is similar in that it is also entirely animated, but in much more of a comic book style. It was like filmed first with real people, which only took 23 days, I read. Yeah. And then it took a year and a half to do all the animation in the end.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so both of these have a huge aspect of being animated for part of it, which, you know, makes total sense, especially for Ready Player One. And they also do a good point in talking about how, you know, the reason part of it is so freeing is because you can be, you know, whatever gender you want to be. You can look how you want. You know, you can be who you want, who you're like afraid to be in the real world. So they definitely give that whole aspect of why it's so appealing, which obviously I think a lot of people now can relate to that or understand why people, you know, like there are websites like that now. There have been chat rooms where you do that since like, you know,
since chat rooms existed.
Ago.
Yeah. Well, and I think that what was that? There's a new show that almost replicates this entirely, and I've never seen it, but I saw an ad for it. I think it's Show Me Your Voice, where they actually create an animated avatar, and then the person is backstage singing, and it's similar to, or it's I See Your Voice, maybe?
Is it like similar to The Masked Singer?
It's like kind of like The Masked Singer, except they actually animate an avatar for a person.
That's cool. Actually, I haven't heard that one.
It's projected onto the stage, so it looks as if this thing is performing, But like one of the ads I saw, and I'm doing this terrible justice because I don't know anything about the actual show.
But
just
also,
the 30
they're not
seconds. But they're not
sponsoring
sponsoring us, so who cares?
Give us money, and then we'll give a good thing about your show.
But I remember seeing in one of the ads that it's, they have this cool, like, cyberpunk looking hologram that's singing, and the performer themselves was in a wheelchair. It's a person in a wheelchair, but their avatar was like dancing and performing a full stage show while the actual singer was in a wheelchair and singing backstage. So it's kind of this concept is trying to work. And now we've also had, hologram Tupac and a couple other hologram celebrities. That technology is there. We just don't necessarily need it, I don't think.
Right. Like, I was going to say, I love the idea of that for, like, what you said, with somebody with a wheelchair and then their character can, like, dance and do things like that. Mm-hmm. But, like, just like The Masked Singer where you can't see who it is, like, I know I'm going to hate it. Right. Once in actual practice, I'm going to be like, I hate this. Uh-huh. Just like I think that those are too uncanny valley for me.
Yes.
The hologram Tupac and everything.
Yes.
But then there's also, have you ever heard of Vocaloid?
No.
So there's, like, this whole thing that was happening before that, and it's still happening in, like, Japan. They have digital avatar pop stars.
Oh, cool.
That have their own song. Like, they make them, Vocaloid is, like, it's based off of like auto-tune style technology, like software on the computer, where they give them a voice, and based on, like, pitches they say things, so it all sounds like robot voices. And it sounds really weird, but there's, like, they do real concerts where they project this never was a real, never was flesh and blood, it was always a CGI character, and you see real life audiences of, like, hundreds of people going there and being fans and cheering. Like, it's,
that's wild.
And of course, Japan always has all the cooler tech than anybody.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's like that's been a thing that's actually been in practice, and that's just, like, crazy.
I kind of like that, though.
It's insane.
Yeah, it is kind of cool to see someone take on an avatar where they can design exactly what it looks like. If they're feeling a different way a certain day, they can change hairstyle, they can change from being a manic pixie dream girl to being a unicorn with a silver horn. Like, you can change your appearance in any way that you want, and there's an appeal to that, I think.
Before you said unicorn, my brain went squirrel. And I was like, well, I know what I'm doing, I guess. Why do I want to be a squirrel?
I would definitely choose unicorn if I could. I'd probably be unicorn over anything else in the Oasis. That's a good question. If you were in the Oasis, would you be a squirrel?
Why did my brain instantly go squirrel? That's what I'm wondering. No, it wouldn't. Like, I don't know, I'd be something like a Pegasus or like a phoenix or something really cool, or like a mermaid.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Or you could go for merman, like in Cabin in the Woods.
Yes. Still the best payoff I've ever seen in a movie.
And the thing I also liked in Ready Player One, how Wade did have such good friends in the Oasis who showed up for him in real life. And that's the difference between these two movies, is that in Scanner Darkly, the quote-unquote friends that Bob Actor has, they're deadbeats.
Are they friends?
And they're not even friends, and maybe they're all undercover. Right. Nobody can trust anybody. And
who's a deadbeat? Who's actually not a deadbeat and is just pretending to be a deadbeat?
Exactly. So, at least Wade knew who his friends were.
Yeah. But H, both in the movie and the book, was my favorite character. Mm-hmm. Loved the reveal of it being a girl. And that character was just really well done to me in both versions.
Okay.
In the book, Wade is actually, like, really unlikable to me. He's just, like, a pretentious, just, like, snobby jerk. And
snobby gamer dude?
Yeah, like, I don't think that you have to be I don't think you have to be like that to be a very knowledgeable person about all that, like, obscure reference stuff in order to get something. I think that's such a bad portrayal of, like, nerd culture and being something like that. But he's much more likable in the movie, in my opinion. That was refreshing. The other one is I actually had a problem with Artemis because in the book, I don't feel like she's the most fleshed out character either. But in the movie, and I like the actress, actually, that plays her. I've seen her in other things, and she was in Bates Motel. Was probably the first thing I ever saw her in.
Did you see Thoroughbreds?
No, but I know what that is.
I highly
recommend
recommend
it. On my list, because I'm such a big Anya Taylor-Joy fan. That I have to see it at this point.
Yeah.
But they did the thing where she's like, oh, in real life you would hate me, and like her real life, her real self is like a girl who's very pretty and has a port wine stain.
Yeah.
And I just think I'm like they did the thing again where they took a very beautiful, very gorgeous girl, put a little bit of a thing on her, and expected us to be like, oh, she's so horrible.
She's ugly.
Oh my god.
Well, I mean, I guess part of that too is they give Wade zero credit. She even gives him zero credit. Like, you wouldn't like me in real life because I have this mark on my face. And really, if he's the way you say he was in the book, like, probably wouldn't, right?
Right. I have no idea, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing is she's like, oh, yeah, like, I'm used to people lying. You don't have to lie. And I'm like, I just, like, I get if you have the self-esteem issues with you having it yourself, but I just couldn't buy that all her life people were like, you're so ugly. Like I know people with port wine stains, and they're very attractive people, and that does not change any of that. You know, it's not. She's not like the Phantom of the Opera, is what they kind of made it sound like. She hasn't had half her face burned, you know. Yeah, so that was like one of the portrayals that I didn't really like. I didn't think Artemis came off as a bit of a manic pixie dream girl to me.
Yeah,
so
I can see that,
which I disliked. But yeah, I adored H. I thought H's character was fantastic. I also liked the like brothers who weren't really brothers. The like I'm trying to think, Dido and
I don't remember the other kid's name.
But yeah, they were like just friends, but they like their characters were like siblings because they're so close. So
and one of them ended up being 11, and they're all completely mind blown.
Yeah.
The one thing I wish they had done that they really didn't do, because they end up as a group of basically teenagers, you know, fighting the man or whatever. But I wish that there had been an older person. Now that I'm thinking about it, that. You know, they show this entire society playing this game, and they don't show anyone really over the age of 20.
I'm wondering if they did that cautiously on purpose.
Sure.
Because they were worried how much backlash, like, because that's not in the book either.
Okay. I guess, like
I feel
old
like
person talking to young children
right,
probably is not cool.
Because that's been the biggest, the biggest stigma and stereotype is like, oh, the person you're talking to is actually like a 40-year-old man. You know, so part of me thinks like in order to avoid that, they just didn't do it
at all.
Because like nobody would be like,
tracks.
Yeah, it's like as much as I can be like, yeah, I can totally see some older person doing this for nostalgic reasons and just wanting like a friend and feeling lonely or whatever, but like I feel like a lot of people would just be like, because of the day and age we're in, they're just like, I don't buy it.
Right.
He's got a hidden agenda. So I don't know. That's the best guess I have.
Yeah.
Like, and again, they didn't do it in the book, so I could believe that very easily as a change for the movie, but it's not. It's the same. So, but I would have liked that too. It would have been interesting. The other thing that I wish they would have gone more into is in the movie, like from the get-go, he's like, I can change, like you said, I can change my hair whenever I want. That is, first of all, the changing the hair and the clothes thing is like the thing I would utilize the most, because I'm always like, oh, like I want this haircut today, but I don't want it forever, so I'm not going to get it. And yeah, I would just be like that. Ever since movies like Disney Channel's like Smart House and like Xenon and stuff, like I've always been like, oh, I want that like outfit hair changer.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, even that machine in Casper that they like put you through that like combs your hair and stuff, I'm always like all for those. But in the movie, he's like instantly like, I can change my hair, I can look super cool, I can go on all these planets. In the book, there's actually a much bigger class system.
Okay.
So even though the world is in like ruins in reality, that hasn't brought anybody closer together in the virtual world. It's still a huge divided, like the rich get the better stuff.
Okay.
Because when we first start off, Wade's character, his avatar Parzival, he can't afford anything above like the OG avatar you get, you know, like and everybody knows like the base character you get. So like he's walking around and people know he's poor because
he just has like the standard package.
Yeah, he looks like the normal like avatar, and so he has to work extra hard to start getting all of that stuff. And they did not talk about that really at all in the movie, and I wish that they would have done a little bit more of that, because I found that really fascinating.
Yeah.
And also that's a huge part of the cyberpunk thing. I think there were some bigger parts of the book that weren't as cyberpunk in the movie, as much as the aesthetics, like the plot points anyway.
Cool.
So, but yeah, it definitely gets it in there, especially the point where you have Artemis like kidnapped by the IOI, and like you get to see the inside of their kind of fortress company and everything that it does. Like that was definitely, you know, the hard hitting part later on.
Yeah, that was really cool. So for Scanner Darkly, I mean, I keep thinking about it, and one of the things that is similar as we're talking about the cyberpunk nature of this, one thing that holds true between both movies is the outward appearance that someone has. And the concept from this movie, as we said, you know, Keanu's character is undercover and has tried to infiltrate this group of drug users to see where the supply is coming from. They're trying to pin down the supply. And he, in the opening scene, is speaking at like an Elks Lodge or an Eagles Club or something, or like a law enforcement presentation. I don't exactly remember what it was, but he's in something that they call a scramble suit. And that really is the most cyberpunk part of this movie, I would say, is that it's kind of a suit that goes all the way from head to toe, completely covering the face. And it's constantly changing, almost like a chameleon, but constant in quadrants of what someone's face looks like, what their hair looks like, what their skin tone is, what kind of clothes they're wearing. The only thing that doesn't change is their body size. So the movie, and I'm sure that's probably part of what the animation took so long, is constantly changing the face.
Just the scramble suit. Yeah, that's got to be right. Yeah.
Because that's like the most animated part. Because the rest of the movie was rotoscope, so it was sort of just an animated overlay of the film. And then the scramble suit obviously was not real, so they had to animate that part in.
And it was apparently the highest grossing animated rotoscope film that's been made. Yeah.
Awesome.
But it cost way more than it still made.
Yeah.
But yeah, the highest one of those films.
And so you're still dealing with this concept of identity and going undercover as a completely different person, or in this case, and you are anonymous for being so many different people. And I thought that was a really fascinating concept, because the rest of the movie, there's like the Scanner Darkly part, really what it comes down to is surveillance. And being able to understand that you're being watched and other people are watching you and seeing what it is that you're doing. Because frankly, other than the scramble suit, there's not a lot about this movie that's super futuristic.
The surveillance-y stuff is, and like, also the book was written in 1977.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie feels a lot closer to home even now, watching it like
15 years from when it came out, and 8 years from when it was supposedly set.
Right, yeah.
And
it was set in 2013.
It was set in 2013, although when the movie starts, all it says is it's 7 years from now. So if you interpret that literally, it's 7 years from whenever you're watching the movie.
Yeah.
But there really isn't a ton that's like super, super futuristic, other than the scramble suit and the concept of identity and where people are living. So really this movie takes that Avatar concept and puts it in the real world, which I think is really cool, but it also made for just a really confusing plot where I could never quite figure out who was being followed, or like what it was that because he's undercover, but you know it's him because the way the movie's set up, you can kind of see Keanu under the suit.
But his job doesn't know.
That it's him. So when he's at home, he's investigating himself, because he gets set up in an office where he's watching his own house, and his own house is the one that's bugged or surveilled and full of cameras. So he's going back and watching footage of himself living his life. So it becomes very philosophical. A lot of the movie is just reflection on how trashy and awful everything is.
And like everyone is.
And everyone is so terrible.
Much more cynical than a Ready Player One.
Absolutely. Rory Cochrane is in this movie. He opens up the opening scene where...
Oh, that opening scene is it's so uncomfortable, but it's portrayed so great.
So good.
And I wonder, I don't know if I think that, no, I don't think that if it wasn't animated like it was, it would not have been able to portray as accurately as it did.
No.
Not that I've done drugs. I'm like super vanilla with drugs, so I'm not like...
this is exactly how it feels.
Right, like I remember when I felt bugs all over my skin. Yeah.
So Rory Cochrane is in his crummy apartment, and he's just in the midst of having a total breakdown because he's full of drugs and thinks that bugs are on his skin, in his hair, on his teeth,
on his
dog. He's constantly showering, he's rubbing his skin raw, and then he calls his friend / dealer potentially to say, please help me, I'm covered in bugs. And that happens to be Robert Downey Jr., who in his the way that he acts in movies like this was very flippant, let's say, and nonchalant about the whole situation.
It was funny to me, though.
It's really funny.
It's like he's like seen this so many times. He's like, it's fine, dude. Just come over.
We're going to chill out. We're going to go get pancakes. It'll be all good.
Yeah.
So from Rory Cochrane's perception, it really sets this tone of I really don't know what's going to be real in this movie and what's going to be the paranoia and what's the drug influence part of the movie, but not as heavy cyberpunk as I expected.
Yeah, no, it was. We're at the point where it hasn't surpassed like the tech and stuff that has happened to make us have it feel dated, and, and with how far we are ahead of it, it is so interesting. But the scramble suit was one of my. It was so cool. Like it was one of my favorite like new tech cyberpunk things. And like she said, it keeps changing, and it's not even like the head changes, the body change. It's 4 different faces pushed together, 4 different like parts of a torso, 2 different legs. And one of the trivia facts that I saw, which I don't think I could ever pick this out without freeze framing stuff, is apparently while he's at that lodge giving that speech, there's a moment where he turns into Philip K. Dick.
Nice.
And I don't know if it's a moment of the entire suit becomes one person or if it's like bits of him in like a couple seconds. So eventually I will look that up, but obviously there wasn't a way for me to portray this over podcast, so
right.
I was like, I'll do it later. But yeah, so I during the scene, if you watch it, when he's giving the speech, look it up, see, I'm sure somebody on like Reddit or online has pinpointed the exact seconds to look up, but just play around with it, see if you can find when that happens.
Oh, that's great. I love
I know
it.
I will.
There was one scene that really disturbed me. I don't feel like this is too much of a spoiler, but because Fred is his undercover name, or Bob Arctor, the Keanu character, is watching his own house. So at times he's watching scenes that he's actually in. He's going back and watching things. Sometimes he's watching his house in real time while he's not there because he's at work. And somehow no one figures out that, he's not there when he's at work and he is there when he's there. So you never know what's real, like I said. Well,
there's one part, and maybe we just don't see this, but when he has to be undercover, and this is not they don't, his job doesn't know he's Bob, but they know that he is living amongst the druggy house. So they tell him, they're like, when you're doing this, go in and edit yourself out of several shots.
Yes,
but keep yourself in some of them, because obviously if we see somebody completely gone, we'll know who you are.
We'll know who it is,
So they know that Fred is either Winona Ryder or Woody Harrelson or Robert Downey Jr., but they don't know. So they've narrowed it down, but they don't know which one of the house members. They just know he is one of them.
He's one of them.
And that's so close to and so they're like, make sure that we don't find out that you're the one doing all of this, when like in reality he's not.
He's not?
Yeah, they're like, they're on a lead that doesn't exist really.
But there's this scene where he is watching his house in real time. Obviously, he's not there, and Woody Harrelson and Robert Downey Jr. are there, and Woody Harrelson is heating up leftovers and sits down to eat and starts choking.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so horrifying to watch where, Keanu was really sweating how to solve this situation where essentially he's watching his friend die in real time because Robert Downey will not call the ambulance or offer any help because they're living in a house that is full of drugs. And just that tension and that feeling of dread while you're watching this happen in real time, that one was really disturbing. That's something that's going to stick with me for a while.
Yeah, and I want to go back to that.
Yeah.
But, the other really disturbing scene for me was when the bug guy.
Rory Cochrane.
What's his
name?
Name
Is Freck?
Freck, yes,
yeah,
Freck.
Freckles.
And so Freck tries to kill himself at one point in the movie, and he tries to basically just down a bunch of pills, and it just doesn't work. He just doesn't go through with it. And then this is probably the weirdest hallucination he has, is he hallucinates this it almost looks like a door-to-door salesman alien. He's got a bazillion eyes and is green and is reading him his rights. And he kind of comes off like he's supposed to be almost like an angel at the gate or something. And it was interesting for me, that portrayal, because I would think it was just completely out there hallucinations. But I thought, I wonder if any part of this was trying to weirdly portray some of the more accurate descriptions of angels, the ones that say they're orbs with a million eyes and actually look terrifying. They don't look like cherubs and like romance novel people, with wings.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that part was the trippiest. And
when he shows up with a stack of pages where he reads him all of his discretions.
Yes, and there's so many.
When you were it's like the scene in Goonies where Chunk just starts confessing every single thing he's ever done. It's like that in reverse, where someone's reading you every bad thing you've ever done. Because I think it was even you pushed your sister down the stairs when you were 9, and you did this on Thursday. Yeah,
so funny, man.
They really go in deep on stuff that he's done.
Yes, they do. But yeah, going back to the part where Woody Harrelson's character is choking, that was the creepiest Robert Downey Jr. part to me.
Yeah.
And I still don't fully know who I think he is. Because they show a scene earlier where he's in the office that Fred, Keanu Reeves, works in. And he's saying he's got insider information, but it kind of just seems like he's blowing smoke.
Yeah.
He just wants to be part of it. But then you get to that moment and you're kind of is there more to it than I don't want to call because of drugs? And he gets a very evil side to him that seems more of it. And I still don't really know whether I didn't pay close enough attention or just haven't figured it out yet. I don't really know who he actually is.
Yeah.
I don't know what part he plays, if he's just also on a different level of drugs, so he thinks he's smarter than everybody. Because, all of the characters in the house portray a very stereotypical druggy person. There's the super paranoid one, which is Freck. There's, Woody Harrelson is the kind of typical chilled out kind of stoner dude. Robert Downey Jr. is the pretentious jerk, that thinks he knows everything and has been enlightened by all the drugs. And Winona Ryder is kind of just the kind of another chill person.
Well, you think that until he goes back to her house and she's don't touch me, I do a lot of coke.
Right. And then you see she's a little more messed up than she seems.
Yeah.
But then you get to the ending, and
she's definitely not what she seems. Let's just leave it at that.
Yes, she is not what she seems, and it is. I did not see it coming.
No.
She played her role very convincingly.
So the way that the movie ends, which I'm still a little confused by, is that Keanu does end up in the New Path facility where he's being rehabilitated, supposedly. But I'm going to read this sentence from the Wikipedia page because it's a nice little tie-in to Cyber Monday and every other little thing we have going on this week. It says, the book ends with Bruce, who is the character's name that Keanu takes on in the rehab center. It says, although considered by his handlers to be nothing more than a walking shell of a man, quote, Bruce manages to spot rows of blue flowers hidden growing among rows of corn and realizes the blue flowers are Mors ontologica, sorry for that pronunciation, which is the source of substance D. The book ends with Bruce hiding a flower in his shoe to give to his friends, undercover police agents posing as recovering addicts at the Los Angeles New Path facility on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, the ending was the most impactful part of the movie to me. It was that very last part, and then the quote that from Philip K. Dick that they include right before the credits.
Yeah, that got me.
Yeah, that made me I was like, it gave me the message that the movie was trying to send.
Yeah. The movie ends, once the final scene is over, there is a credit scene where the names of what I'm assuming are people who have either died from overdose or, were not able to make any kind of recovery from addiction are all, and the author lists all of those people, and that movie is dedicated to them.
He says that though these people are like druggies, they didn't deserve the punishment. Basically, they just needed help, and that they were all his friends. And this movie was actually based, I saw, on his own personal experience doing drugs. So this is like something that we still talk about today. We're talking about how, people that are doing drugs, like, should we just be throwing them in jail or should we be trying to get them help? Of course, because it's something completely different. And this definitely hit home and still felt extremely relevant. And that part did hit me a lot too.
Yeah.
One of the other things that lead up to him, the catalyst of him being taken in and sent to the recovery places, it seems very much like an ink blot test, and it's where, you're given a bunch of like lines, like this kind of puzzle card, and then you're supposed to see a very distinct picture in the middle, and if you're like sane of mind and not on drugs, you can see it easily. He starts to less and less like be able to make out what it is, and so finally he gets to the point, and first of all, this is it reminded me a lot of the test from Blade Runner, the vibe of it, even though it was nothing like it. And then when I was looking stuff up about it, that was apparently intentional because he also wrote "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?"
Yep.
And so I was like, oh, look at that! Like that's an interesting nod. So that was really fun. I liked those scenes a lot too because they were really tense. But once he got far enough and they told him, like, we have to, commit you to New Path's actual recovery thing. You don't work here anymore. You're fired. He was like, but you guys, like, I had to do it. I had to take the drug too. Like, it's not my fault that I got overdosed. And he's like, so then they lay it on him. They're like, oh, no. You didn't have to take the drug. Like, plenty of people have done this and they've just pretended. And I almost felt like he was set up.
He got duped.
Yeah. Because I feel like he seemed very sure, and like they were all like they knew he'd been taking the drug. So why now be like, oh well, you shouldn't have done it,
Well, they knew he was taking it, and they're like, well, we have to test you.
Yeah, that's why they're
to see how
doing
far
it.
gone you are, and then so they know he's taking it. Yeah, that's not fair.
Yeah, and I won't reveal the other kind of big twist, but there's a reason they're duping him, is what I will say.
Yes.
And, one of the parts where he finds the flower, he is super out of it. And he asks, when he'll be able to see his friends again. And the guy that, he goes from, like, being inside the facility to working out in these fields, which he's, harvesting things. And he finds the blue flowers in the field. And so the guy tells him, I think it's you'll see them at Thanksgiving, like, 3 months from now.
Yeah.
So, he's going to be, and just like in the book, he puts the flower in his shoe, and so you're, thinking, okay, and like he's gonna wait 3 months pretending that he's brain dead,
a shell of a man,
or maybe he's a little bit, but like he's starting to come out of it and be more clear, like it's wearing off, but and so in 3 months' time, like the cover's gonna get blown off of this conspiracy with this drug and who's passing it out, and it's like that's the moment when you're kind of like, okay, so did he ever really get too hooked on the drug? Like, has this whole thing been like an undercover mission for an undercover job? Like, there's just so many layers that, like, I feel like you're like this is one of the movies that is dense, and you're probably going to need to watch it a couple times to fully understand where everybody stands and what level the conspiracy is at. But it makes you, the movie very well gets under your skin, makes you feel like there are bugs on you, makes you feel like you've done drugs, and makes you just like, you know, it makes you feel very like conspiratory and very just like, it does a very good job at the whole psychological end. So I did really enjoy A Scanner Darkly.
I liked it. I don't think I would watch it again, to be honest. Like, that feeling of the paranoia and confusion, I didn't like that feeling.
I love that feeling. That's my day-to-day feeling. It was no different.
But I like what it was trying to do with the style it was created. That scramble suit, I don't know how that would have worked unanimated. It would not have, the technology does not
It probably would have looked really crappy.
It would have been pretty bad. So I like the way that it was handled.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I think that it was, I'm glad I watched it. It was an interesting concept. But yeah, those are our
Or you
picks.
might go crazy.
You might go crazy. You might have bugs on you. You never know. You might be looking for hidden cameras all over your house.
Like we're not already doing
exactly.
But yeah, so I guess, I feel like we have differing opinions on these this time. So I guess if you want my review, I say A Scanner Darkly, I liked better than Ready Player One. I do think it's a dense watch, though. I don't think it's an easy watch, just like I'm sure the book is not an easy read, and I'm probably never going to attempt to read it. I'm just going to be honest, because so I give that one a definite recommendation. I didn't like Ready Player One, the book. I didn't really care about the movie. It's not the most terrible thing ever. It's an enjoyable romp. It's actiony, it's lighthearted. So if it sounds, at least for me, all of my friends told me I would love it, that it was for me, which I understand why, because it has two of some of my favorite things. It has 80s stuff, which I'm like a huge nostalgic fan of, and it has video games. The only thing it doesn't have is horror. It's not a horror movie, you know what I mean? And so I was all...
There is a Chucky in it, though.
That's true. I guess there are horror game characters in it, but yeah, so I guess I went into it really wanting to love it, and was hugely disappointed. And so...
It had a high bar for you.
It had a high bar, The content that the book is about is super awesome. I just think that, as book-wise, I think that the writing wasn't great. It wasn't executed great. And so, of course, if that's the case, the movie can't... Movies don't normally expand hugely beyond that for me, so it is fun. It's not something you have to think super hard about, so if you think that it looks fun and good, watch it, because there are redeeming parts of the movie. Absolutely, the CGI in Oasis World looks super freaking cool.
It's cool.
They did an amazing job, and like I said, I think the characters are a little more likable in the movie than the book. So,
and I would say that I'm disappointed that I wasn't able to. I would have rather seen this on a big screen with some popcorn and some candy. It would have been a fun, Saturday matinee in the middle of the summer when I didn't have anything else going on. Watching it at home, it had some things that were missing for me, and I will go back and read the book for sure. But yeah, I mean, they were fine. They were both fine movies, just not anything I would seek out to watch again. I'm not going to visit either of these a second time. Ready Player One is available on DVD or Blu-ray through the library, and you can stream A Scanner Darkly on Canopy, available for free with your library card. The books of each of those are also available if you'd rather read than watch. Beyond that, we hope you all have an excellent Thanksgiving and Cyber Monday. Check out those sales, whatever it is you're going to spend your money on. Thanks for tuning in, and we are Library Gals Go to the Movies.
And next time we'll be coming at you with some holiday cheer.
Oh, we're going to keep the Keanu vibe alive,
yes,
and we'll leave it at that.
We will leave it at that, and we will just let you, just get ready to ride the Keanu wave.
I love it.
Join us next time for Library Guys Go to the Movies. For more information on any of the films or digital services we've discussed, please visit DelawareLibrary.org.